Look at us being a little bit more punctual this time.
Just a little.
Yeah, it's not like a month and a half since our last episode.
For the first time in a long time.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit more consistent.
It is yet another rainy day, though.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like, I got up this morning, and my wife's been gone at work, and it was really freaking dark when I woke up, and I was just like, oh, well, I guess I better go work on my review.
It was dark enough that I slept until past 7 for the first time in a while.
Yeah. Well, it's summertime, you should.
Yeah. Working way too much for the summer.
Yeah, doing what? Doing golf course, too?
Golf, and then football practice has started, so it's been a little nuts that way as well.
Coach Aaron?
Yeah, which is scary. It's a scary thought.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is.
All right. Well, we actually got a lot of stuff to talk about, so we best get going.
Yeah, I guess we can get going. Come here, sister. Papa's in the swing. He ain't too hip about that new breed, babe. He ain't no drag. Papa's got a brand new bag.
What up, party people? This is, of course, James Dorn coming to you from Aaron's basement in Appleton, Wisconsin. And with me is the guy who lives life at 33 and a half in a 45 world. The guy who, like side A of Lazaretto, is a little bit backward and has some hidden content. Aaron Rohde.
I'm definitely more of a 33 and a third guy. Definitely not a 45 guy.
So am I. So when I was working on my review this morning, I put that Magnolia Park album on, and I totally forgot it was a 45. So that first song kicked in, and of course it was super bassy and slow sounding, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Well, and it's hard because I don't think it's really advertised anywhere on the album cover.
No.
At 45.
And I go into it on the review. Like, I think I talk about the caliber of the gatefold and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And no, there's definitely nothing. And I don't think it was on the shrink wrap either.
No, I think I found out because it was on the Discogs listing. I think that's how I realized it.
Right. That would make sense. So, I think if you were listening last time, we talked about how our new record store was going to be opening up in town. The Eroding Winds Appleton location, their second one, mm-hmm. which a couple of the guys from the shop actually gave our podcast a listen. So if you guys are listening, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate you. So what'd you think, man?
I really liked it. The one thing that I think it has going for it is when you think record store, you probably think something small, something compact, and that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so the exclusive company, which many of you may not be from in our area, had been in business for something like 60 years, was it, or something like that? A long time. They had a fair amount of locations spread out over Wisconsin, and the one in our town was actually in a mall, like a isolated mall, not like a big mall.
Right.
And that mall's dying. But
for sure.
Yeah, there's a Kohl's, which is a big department store, a Chinese restaurant. There's a grocery store a little ways down the road.
Dental office, I think, was right next door to the exclusive company.
And a Cousin Subs.
Yeah, that's about it.
That was about it. So that really wasn't a great location. And then we have a main avenue in our town, which we call College Avenue, which goes by Lawrence University, which is a pretty big college, that like an arts college. And apparently the exclusive company used to be on the avenue many, many years ago.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then they moved to this location. So it's kind of nice to go to a record store that's not in a dying part of town.
Yeah, that's for sure. And, I don't know about you, but I don't go to that area very often. So it's nice to kind of see what has been put in those storefronts and all the other different stuff that's there, too.
I mean, they're putting a lot of work in our downtown area. Previously, honestly,
trying to clean it up a little bit.
Really just bars, and it was kind of dumpy, and there are a couple stray restaurants, and the businesses that were down there really didn't thrive real well. I mean, I remember in high school, there was a CD store that was down there, and it wasn't anything special. This was when vinyl was long dead. So
I think that one actually moved into the other mall in town and has since gone out of business.
Yeah, that place, I think it was, I want to say CD Warehouse.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I remember some very specific CDs that I bought there, but that place, yeah, that's been dead for a bit. So yeah, so it's definitely a little bit smaller than the exclusive company, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because they're not selling stereos and stuff like that. Which I never looked at stereos ever there anyway, so that really didn't bother me.
I thought the really cool thing was that they had the DJ right at the door. That was super cool.
Yeah, I love that you walk in, you see their turntable pretty darn close to the door. They got a display stand, you can see what they're listening to, and they had Duran Jones and the Indications' newest album on when we went opening day. So I mean, the only downside was that day. I mean, it was opening day. We were elbow to elbow with everybody. It was a little hard to get around, but I totally get it because everybody was super excited.
Well, and I haven't been in there since, but was there a little more breathing room going back?
So, admittedly, I was there every day that weekend.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, Friday, Aaron and I went, which was day one, and then they had a really cool show afterwards that neither one of us, unfortunately, made it to, like a grand opening band playing. And then on the second day, I brought a different friend who had been considering getting into vinyl because he wanted to look around. It was definitely more room. You could get around a little easier, but it was still pretty darn busy. And then I had dropped off some records to sell, purging out the collection and so on. So one of the big things that's different than the exclusive company had a new and used section for vinyl. These guys don't. This is more of a traditional setup where all of the records are intermingled. And I think Aaron and I got a little bit of different opinion on that. I like it. I like just checking all the A's, all the B's, all the C's, and not having to go to 50 different locations or stuff.
Yeah, I think it helps you go through all of them because I don't think I ever really flipped through the used bin at the exclusive company.
I very rarely did.
Yeah, just because, it was so easy to walk right by. So I think it's good to have them in there. The other thing I really appreciated was that they had just about every used record in a nice outer sleeve too.
Yeah.
And you and I kind of talked about that, and we don't mind paying an extra $1 to a record if it's going to come in nice sleeves like that.
Right. Everything had a good sleeve on the inside too, from what I could see. They had a sticker with the rating of the media and the jacket on the outside, and in many cases explaining why they graded it, what they did.
Yeah, and I appreciated that they had their grades defined before you even bought anything. So there were labels on just about every bin from what I saw about this is what this grade means. Most of the records had, if they didn't have a great grade, they usually had a description on why or what was up with it. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely well prepared, very organized. Staff was super nice. I Sunday night was there picking up some stuff after my records were, quoted me a price. And one of the employees and I, every time I get a chance to talk to him, we go off on a huge freaking tangent. And, I ended up being there a couple minutes after close. But I used to work retail, so I didn't want to hang out too long and be a jerk. But he was super nice, and we're definitely having a fun time talking.
The one other thing I'll say is I appreciate the more fleshed out hip hop section.
Oh yeah, their hip hop section.
Yeah,
far superior to the exclusive company.
And it's not the same 3 artists with different records. It was much more diverse, and I truly appreciate that.
Yes, and then they had, I think, like funk, jazz, and soul. They had metal separately, which they had a pretty fleshed out metal section as well, which isn't surprising because on Sunday I had found out the owner actually owns a record label in the area as well. And it seems like I looked at their page, it's really mostly metal. And metal's not really my jam, but I do appreciate the skill, the art, and the passion for it.
And then the fact that you have a separate punk section too.
Yes.
I enjoy that because that's, that stuff brings me back to the kind of middle school feels, and it's just nostalgic for me, and I like seeing that stuff too.
Yeah, and it sounds like too, we really don't have anywhere to buy CDs except for a half price books. Yeah, it sounds like they're going to start getting into CDs there. And when I was there one day, the owner quoted, he said, "There's not another record store for 50 miles.
Yeah.
So it's like, thank you.
I believe that.
Yeah. I was real happy to have them there. And, they they're good people. They're such good customer service. So what'd you end up picking up?
So I got 4 records. 2 of them I had been looking for a while. One was Daft Punk Random Access Memories. The other one was...
Which I tried to get for you at one point, but ended up having problems online with it.
And they had a few copies of it. The other one was My Chemical Romance, The Black Parade, which I had gotten for you. I believe the vinyl is etched. It looks super cool on the table.
Looked like it was the same one that you had gotten me,
I think so, because I had the same cover on it.
This was when it was super packed in there, and I happened to find it, and I grabbed it for you because I knew you'd been wanting it.
Yeah, that was super helpful. We both had kind of pulled some things for each other to look at. And then I got 2 hip-hop albums, Mad Villain, Mad Villainy, which he was a member of the Swollen Members group. And I got their greatest hits off of One Record Store Day.
This is going to shock you. I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I hadn't either before I got that album. They actually had a copy of that Record Store Day album there that I almost picked up for you.
They had a good amount of Record Store Day stuff.
Yeah, they did. And then the other one was Digital Underground. This is an EP release, I think is the title of it.
I would have considered buying that had I saw
Which is amazing, and it was only like $16, so it was totally worth it.
And I want to point out, too, that day Aaron spent more money than me.
Not by much, but I did.
Yeah, I think it was about $10 more, so that was good for you. But about later when I came and cashed in my records, I ended up buying more stuff.
Which is totally fair.
So it's a wash. All right, so I picked up a couple records. One was Jimmy Eat World, Bleed America. Bleed American, I
apologize. Was that in the punk section?
No, it was mixed in with the kind of general pop, which was a little surprising. I want to say that album was originally released in 2001. Of course, my repressing has this year's release because this is when it was pressed. Post 9/11, for a while when that album was being made on CDs, they took off the Bleed American off of it, and it was just Jimmy Eat World, like a self-titled debut.
I can see that.
Or not a debut, but a self-titled album. And this version, they went back to the original title, which I appreciated. That was one of the first ones I put on, and it was really, really great to hear that again. Obviously, this is the album where in the middle came out, which has been on so many commercials and stuff that it's almost obnoxious. And then one of their other big songs was Sweetness, which is just an awesome track. I got Albert Collins' Ice Pickin', which that's a good album if you're into like blues. I tried it out because Armando was showing it on one of the Second Chance record auctions. And then,
is that the one that you picked up and initially put back the first day?
Yeah, I think I went.
I think there was.
You're right. Out. I went back, and this is one of the ones I got when you weren't there, but I did get it. And then I got Cake Fashion Nugget, which Cake is kind of a band that was pretty popular in the time period when vinyl really wasn't being made. Okay. So this is like one of the first releases of it. I think they did a pressing a long time ago, and then they just started doing it again. And then I got into kind of a British band, Echo and the Bunnymen, Heaven Up Here. This is one of those bands that, like, if you ever talk to like music snobs or if you watched High Fidelity, they always talk about Echo and the Bunnymen. Yeah. And I never really gave it a chance, and I listened to some of it on Apple Music. And I was like, this is great. And then they happen to have some there for retail, so I'm like, do it. And then let's talk about Jack White. So I got Jack White's Lazaretto, which you may have caught in the intro that I mentioned that. So I felt like a total noob. So I finally got to listen to it on, I want to say it was Sunday. I put it on my turntable. I dropped that needle. It hits the music and it starts making this horrendous static sound, and it doesn't look like the needle's moving anywhere. So I took it off, I cleaned it, I was looking at it for any kind of imperfection or anything like that, and then I tried it again. And then I went back, I called the guys in the store, I'm like, hey, can I bring this in and let you play it and just make sure it's not my table? And they're like, well, what table do you got? And I told them, and he goes, well, that's a pretty solid setup. So I brought it in, and there's the owners there. The guy that I talked to whenever I'm in there was there, and then I think one or two other people. And they put it on, and it does exactly the same thing. And they're all looking confused. And then the owner goes, "That's a locked groove." So a locked groove would be what you get at the end of a record when it's done, so it doesn't continue on and hit the center of your turntable. Mm-hmm. And I'm still not piecing things together at this point about why that would be there. Interestingly, I did find out sometimes with hip hop albums, each track will have that, so they can do mixing and scratching and whatnot, and that was really interesting. So they're like, "Oh yeah, there's something weird about how you play this." I'm like, "What do you mean?" So they load up Discogs, and apparently on side A, you actually put the needle on the inside of the record and it plays outward, which I was like, that's crazy. Now, if you have an automatically retracting arm on your record player, it might not be able to work for you, just because it'll think that you're done. So we put it on, and sure enough, it goes ahead and plays like completely normal. And I was like, whoa. At this point, I'm feeling a little stupid, but not because they're making me feel stupid.
Right.
And then, so we play it, and they go, "Oh, there's other stuff. There's a lot of weird stuff with this." So on the other side, so side B, you play it normally from the outside in. And then under the labels, there are hidden songs, but they're at a 45 speed instead of 33 and a half.
Yeah, see, that's just amazing.
They pulled up videos, let me watch it. They printed out instructions on how to play it. And then apparently on their deluxe version, and they found a YouTube video to show me, when you play the record, these angels appear in the dead wax when it's spinning.
That's kind of awesome.
So at this point, I'm like, I love Jack White even more.
Yeah.
He trolled me hard and he got me.
You can't be the only one that's happened to.
No,
There's no way.
So they said they usually print out instructions and put it in there if someone trades that in, which I'm not going to be doing because I love that.
Right.
Anyway.
Have you played the one under the label yet?
I haven't.
Okay.
So I am tempted to do it. I could do it right now because my table's set up for a 45 right now. I could do it. But I was toying around with the idea of getting a second copy and then not playing the label on one. So I haven't made up my mind yet. So going on to news section. So previously we had talked about R. Kelly and his conviction for federal racketeering and sex trafficking. So he was finally sentenced on June 29th. Hopefully this brings some peace to his victims. And I didn't know what racketeering was. So basically, he used his fame to ensnare people in sex trafficking and extort money out of them. Mm-hmm. What a piece of crap.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
So I guess I didn't write it down, so I'm going to be going off memory, but I want to say he got 30 years.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then they put him on suicide watch, and now he's suing because he doesn't want to be on suicide watch. And then I saw that he actually, I guess, is engaged to one of his supposed victims, which he's probably broke now. So
so he was sentenced to 30 years.
Yeah. Probably not long enough in my mind.
No, definitely not.
So if you missed it, Metallica had a pretty big appearance on Stranger Things.
Yeah, and I had kind of heard about it, but I didn't see it until you had sent it to me.
Right, I loved it. So the character Eddie Munson, and this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear this, maybe skip ahead. He just absolutely shreds the 1986 classic Master of Puppets during kind of a key battle scene. And apparently the actor, Joseph Quinn, put in a lot of time to actually learn this song and took it very seriously. The only thing is, I guess he had a stand-in for some of the trickier parts, which my guess would probably be the solo. So 17-year-old Ty Trujillo, son of Metallica bassist Robert Trujillo, was his stand-in.
Which is awesome.
So yeah, keeping it in the family. And then I guess Metallica responded with a TikTok, and it's basically the band playing along with that scene, which I also made Aaron watch. So then shortly after that, they took to social media in support of some of the newer fans that kind of found them because of this and more recent things, and called out some of these toxic fans for gatekeeping of their music.
Oh, I'm sure that they're prices on some of their albums will skyrocket.
Yeah, so I saw a meme and it said something, or not a meme, but like a post. I don't know how true it is, but the amount of people putting this album in their want list on Discogs went up something like 600 and some percent, which I was like, that's kind of cool.
It is, but at the same time, that sucks for, people who've wanted this album for a long time.
Right.
Because it's going to be, I would think it would be harder to get.
I mean, it's a heavily repressed album, so I mean, getting an OG copy probably be hard, but getting a repress, I can't imagine it's too bad. I mean, you could go to Walmart probably and get it. So anyway, I mean, toxic gatekeeping, that's kind of something any hardcore fandom has. Star Wars has it. Marvel has it.
I think music in general just has it too.
Right. And particularly, like, the more established a band is, people will get judgy about it.
For sure.
So I thought maybe we would talk about a time when Metallica wasn't perceived as being cool by the bulk of their fans.
It was probably a while ago.
It was a while ago. So Aaron, tell me, how old were you in 1999?
5.
You were 5. So I'm going to guess you probably weren't on the internet a whole lot.
No, I'm definitely not listening to Metallica, that's for sure.
And you weren't probably also watching a lot of MTV.
No, I wouldn't think so.
All right, so
and if I was, I don't think MTV was on it.
Probably
or
not.
Metallica was on MTV.
Probably not. So picture this: June of 1999. Internet access has soared over the last 10 years. A recent college dropout of Boston's Northeastern University was about to change the landscape of home music. I, of course, am talking about Sean Fanning and his friend Sean Parker had a discussion about the difficulty in finding the material that they wanted online. This conversation was the groundwork for what would become the peer-to-peer file sharing service called Napster. Had you heard of Napster?
I've heard of it. When I would think of it, I wouldn't think of it as file sharing. I would think of it more like a LimeWire kind of thing.
I'll be honest, I never really used LimeWire, so I can't speak to that. But I did use Napster quite a bit back in the day. Mm-hmm. So to kind of like paint the picture, these guys kind of would later say that they had this vision that people would share the music that they love online and have discussions and build communities around various types of music. So at this point, I mean, I haven't bought a desktop in years. I mean, you got your gaming desktop over there.
Right. Yeah. That's the closest thing I've had to a desktop since I left my parents' house. Right.
So back then, this was an era of dial-up. Pretty much every home computer came with a CD burner, like, built into it. I mean, nowadays you buy a laptop and you'd actually pay a lot of extra to have a CD drive.
The first laptop I got, that one has a CD drive in it, but the Surface that I use, that one doesn't.
And what we record on definitely doesn't.
Right.
So you could go to like Walmart or really any store and go in their electronics section. You'd find rows of blank CDs in just varying packages, varying colors, varying sizes. You'd find CD cases. You'd find kits where you can make your own CD covers if you choose to.
I think I might still have a stack of unused blank CDs yet somewhere.
I had a stack even as recently as like 2 years ago of CD cases that were in my closet, and I would just throw them out. I'm like, I'm never gonna use these. Nope. So not even for like data.
Right.
So this time period, I imagine you weren't driving around in cars like with your friends and stuff.
No.
So this is when I was in high school. So everybody pretty much had a binder full of CDs, and it weighed like 90 pounds.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, so it was a zip-up binder. There were little dividers on each page. You know, if it was a big one, it'd probably hold about 9 CDs per side. So that added up quick. So it was always a pain. Everybody tried to change their CDs at the stoplights. So it'd be like, hold on.
Yep.
So what was Napster? Basically, a glorified file browser with a stripped-down interface. They called it a file sharing, but let's be honest, it was really just MP3s.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever saw any file that wasn't an MP3. So you'd pick a file, And then it would pull pieces from numerous people with the same file on their PCs. And the idea was that like you weren't going to overwhelm one specific person with downloading. Of course, bandwidth. You could tinker with the settings, saying how much you would allow other people to tie up your bandwidth, etc. If you were lucky, you'd maybe get an album a night. I mean, because this was like when, the internet wasn't very fast. So I'd basically wait for my family to go to sleep. I'd dial up on my internet. I'd set that all up for the night. And then inevitably at some point in the morning, I'd lose connection or one of them would use the phone and then I'd lose connection. And then, of course, I would burn that onto a CD. It, of course, was extremely popular right out the gate. And by the end of that first summer, millions of songs were being exchanged. So how did Metallica get involved? You got any theories, Aaron?
No, but on a quick Google search, Napster is still a thing.
Oh, yep. I got an update on Napster at the end. Okay. So their co-manager, Cliff Bernstein, alerted them that an early edit of the single I Disappear, which was slated to be a contribution for the upcoming blockbuster Mission Impossible 2. Good old Tom Cruise. It was played on something like 20-something radio station. Yeah, so Lars, Metallica's drummer, was quoted as saying in 2013, we were like, well, they fucked us, so let's fuck them.
Yeah, why not at that point?
Right? So they did some research and basically traced it back to Napster. April 13, 2000, shots were fired. The internet and the music industry came to blows. Metallica versus Napster Inc. was filed in the District Court of Northern California. A few weeks later, Dr. Dre would file a similar suit. At this point, Metallica was kind of like the tip of the spear. Mm-hmm. So let me read their press release that they put out at the time. With each project released from the band, we go through a grueling creative process to achieve music that we feel is representative of Metallica. At that very moment in our lives, we take our craft, whether it be music, the lyrics, or the photos or the artwork, very seriously, as do most artists. It is therefore sickening to know that our art is being traded like a commodity rather than the art that it is. From a business standpoint, this is about piracy. Taking something that doesn't belong to you and that is morally and legally wrong. The trading of such information, whether it's music, videos, photos, or whatever, is in fact trafficking stolen goods. Mm-hmm. All right, so July 11th, Lars reads a testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee accusing Napster of copyright infringement, stated not only was I Disappear available, but also their entire catalog for free. So I don't know about you, but at the time I was like, damn the man. I was like, Metallica's being ridiculous. But now in hindsight, all that work they put in, I would be super mad if I put a bunch of work and people are giving it away for free.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
So Metallica sought a minimum of $10 million in damages at a rate of $100,000 per illegally downloaded song. They also hired NetPD, an online consulting firm. NetPD produced a list of over 335,000 Napster users who were sharing the band's songs and therefore violating copyright laws. They demanded those users be banned and their service would no longer be allowed to share bands who did not want their music on that. This, of course, led to people finding ways around it. They'd create a new Napster account and then they'd be back on there. The band also named several universities who were allowing their networks, including Southern California University, Yale, and Indiana University, for allowing them to do that. Because you were in college, right? Mm-hmm. You all had a shared internet.
Right.
You were probably sharing stuff with each other on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, March 2001, federal judge Marilyn Hall Patel issued a preliminary judgment in Metallica's favor. Napster was given an order to place a filter removing the band's music within 72 hours or be shut down. At this point, numerous artists and the labels, including the IRAA, were piling on the lawsuits. July 12th, Napster reached a settlement with Metallica and Dre. After this, BMG became interested in purchasing Napster for $94 million. This was ultimately blocked due to a conflict of interest. Napster's CEO, Conrad Hibbers, was a former BMG executive. Napster was forced to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy and liquidate their assets. Napster's assets were later acquired by Roxio and reemerged as an online store. Best Buy bought them, merged it with Rhapsody, and then they rebranded all that stuff back to Napster on July 16th of 2016. May of 22, so this year, the service was bought by the blockchain company Algorand, a crypto-focused investment firm.
And from what I see, it's a streaming service.
Right.
What I got out of it.
I'm assuming they're gonna, go heavily on NFTs. I would think so.
Or something stupid like that.
But I don't think at this point Napster's got that name recognition anymore. That
not the good recognition that you want anyway.
Absolutely not.
No, that's painful. But I mean, it's the same as people like sharing Netflix accounts and stuff now.
Which a lot of people do.
I mean, you're not going to get around in today's day and age with just how accessible computers and stuff are. People are going to find ways around this.
Right. I mean, even if you have a VPN where they can't trace where you're coming from, most of them have a thing where they're not going to let you use it if you have a VPN.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. I get where they're coming from, and I think they did have to, somebody had to set a precedent. But at the same time, is it really that harmful?
Yeah, at that time, everybody was hating on Metallica hard for this.
Yeah.
I mean, MTV, they were on MTV a lot, talking. It was big news at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people were going, download everything you can now, blah, 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 blah. And people just were grumpy about it.
I guess when you think about it, when Snoop Dogg said they were going to pull all of the early Death Row stuff, people probably went out and bought those records.
Like me?
Yeah. I mean, or CDs or whatever, because there's no other way to do it.
And from what I can tell, Lars is still very much hey, this was the right thing to do, even currently. But Kurt Hammett, one of their guitarists, was it was kind of a futile fight.
Oh, I'm sure it was, but I wonder how many records they sold, in light of this fight too.
Oh, I'm sure they probably took
CDs or whatever.
They probably took a hit for a while and then ultimately kind of bounced back from it, as I think everybody does. I mean, even actors who have terrible tragedies or befall their career and they kind of ruin their lives, most of them make it back. Will Smith's gonna make it back.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Metallica was ever really hurting for money.
No, the Black Album is still one of the biggest selling albums till this day.
And they just did the huge tribute for it. Was it last year or the year before, where all these other bands covered songs? So I think they're doing okay.
Yeah, I think they're gonna make it through all of this. I mean, and it's hard not to see that this essentially laid the groundwork for Spotify and all of them, because all these laws had to be made where people had to get paid for stuff.
The one interesting thing I think about Spotify and Apple Music is if you're a paid user, you can still download those albums. And I don't know if it'd be interesting to see if artists get paid more for downloads or for streams.
I don't think they do. And another interesting thing too, I listen to podcasts like Michael Rosenbaum's podcast where he interviews celebrities. So people will get paid when their shows go into syndication where they're being paid repeatedly.
Yeah.
But the actors don't get paid for streams on Netflix and stuff, which I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, if artists are getting paid for streams,
because I'm sure Netflix gets paid based on how many streams.
I would assume.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
that's interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, and I think that's they haven't quite figured it out, but I also don't think that they're motivated to figure it out.
Well, yeah, I mean the way things are now is working for a lot of people. So
all these companies don't want to pay their artists more money.
No.
I mean, honestly, too, Apple and Spotify and all those streamer services, they don't pay artists much per stream. Mm-hmm. Spotify being one of the worst of them. I think Apple pays close to a penny per stream, and that's high.
Right.
So.
Which is sad.
All right, buddy.
What we got next?
I think reviews, unless you got something you want to talk about.
No, let's get into it.
I was just blabbing for a long time, so let's let you do your review first.
So I was given Tyler, the Creator's album titled Call Me If You Get Lost. Now, I'll preface this by saying the only thing I knew about Tyler, the Creator, before listening to this was, one, that he was very strange and very outlandish, and two, that he likes to eat cockroaches on stage.
Which didn't mesh up with me looking at the record. Like, it's a very brightly, like, happy cover to it. And then, like, when I listened to the music, he wasn't talking about weird crap.
No, and he was also, like, 18 or 19 when he first started to get big. So I think that was kind of part of it. And it almost sounded like, you know, you come up as the new strange kid on the block. You get the name recognition, and then you shift gears and really focus on the music.
Like that photo you sent me where he's got like white contacts in.
Yeah.
I thought he did look weird.
Yeah. So he, in my eyes, had always kind of been a rap outcast. But again, I had never really listened to his music before. So this was going to be interesting to me. This album was a February 2021 release. And I'll also preface this by saying, when I first listen to a new rap album that I'm going into like this, I will usually pull up the lyrics so I'm able to follow along, just because it's a little easier that way.
I think that's an important part of rap.
Yeah.
Too, like, you know, because the music, so much of it's sampled and then shaping things in a different way. Like, lyrical content's everything.
And it's easy for the lyrics to get drowned out depending on how it's produced, too.
Just turn that bass up.
Especially with the stupid mumble rap we have now.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of mumble rap.
No, me either. So the first two tracks are produced in a very interesting way to me. The intro track, we get a flute throughout, which is unique in rap music.
Not a rap staple.
And then the second track is where the bass starts to kick in. So the song Corso finds him talking about a breakup and how he's going to spend millions to fill a void and do a lot of stuff to keep him busy. And his delivery here is also very angry and very in your face, which I appreciate. The song Lemonhead is kind of a typical trap song to me. It's very bassy. It's got lots of sexual lyrical content.
What do you mean by trap song? I'm not familiar with that terminology.
It's kind of a newer, where they talk about, you know, drugs and sex and alcohol, and it's just something they would play in a club kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Which, admittedly, is not my favorite style of rap. This one does sound good, but it's not necessarily a complex lyrical song. Then we get into some of the other stuff. So Lumberjack is a song that brings me back to 90s hardcore gangster rap. It's in your face. The beat feels very similar to those songs, and it's got you kind of bobbing your head along, and the lyrical punchlines here are great. It features the line, "Used to treat me like the boy from Malcolm in the Middle. Now I'm 00000." And then in parentheses it goes, "That's 6." So basically this is where he kind of calls out rap to me, and even myself a little bit, where we used to treat him as the little outcast that nobody really liked too much, but now he's made it. So I thought that was kind of interesting to call out. The song Massa seems like a song outlining his career to this point and really highlights his growth as an artist. At first, I anticipated this to be a slavery reference, just the way it was written out. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. We get an electronic / funk sounding sound toward the end of the album with the song Sweet / I Thought You Wanted to Dance. This isn't expected at all, but it fits fairly well, actually. But I will say, I don't think he's a singer. I think he's a rapper. Overall, this is much better than I anticipated. It seems like he really had something to prove on this album. He wanted to show he's not the same kid he was when he was rapping at 19. I think he did a great job of that. And as far as the production, it is done super well. It's heavy at times, but it also takes a back seat when he wants to show his lyrical talent. When it debuted, it was number 1 on the Billboard 200. It's the second time he's done that in his career. And it's also his second Grammy win, This one won best rap album in 2021.
Oh.
I think his other Grammy win is also best rap album, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I think he's definitely proved himself now if he's getting that.
For sure. I will say that as far as rap albums come, I don't think there are too many true rap albums that come out anymore, but this is definitely one of the better ones. I never thought he'd win best rap album, but I can definitely see why this one did. It's very well-rounded, and it's one of the few that has the old school feel to it. As for the normal questions, would I have bought it for myself? Absolutely not. I never thought I'd like or even listen to Tyler, the Creator, solely because of his early antics. Will I keep it? Definitely. But I will say I've been moving a little bit away from buying the rap albums, but this one is surprisingly refreshing.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I was not anticipating what I got.
All right. So, kind of a side note for those of you following along, Aaron and I do not have physical copies of albums here today.
Whoops.
The one that I wanted to get Aaron released out last year, and I'll tell you what that is in a second. And the vinyl for it isn't even coming out until the 29th of this month. Mm-hmm. So when Aaron was checking out stuff online for me, and he's like, hey, I want to get you something, but it's not going to be here until next week. I was like, that's okay. I was like, I can order this one for you that I've been wanting to get for you and literally been sitting on for months. And we can just, we'll listen to on our streaming services until those physical copies come in.
Right.
So, Aaron, you want to pull up your Spotify so you can find it right away?
Yeah.
So your artist is going to be D Smoke.
I love D Smoke.
Oh,
I'm going to preface it.
I already ordered you one of his records, and the album's going to be War and Wonders.
Okay. I'm excited for that one. So I found him on the Rhythm and Flow with Chance the Rapper and I think Cardi B and T.I., I think, are the judges.
Yeah. So I was watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot, like the serious dramatic reboot on Peacock. And there's an episode where they go to a D Smoke concert and he's in the episode.
That's awesome.
And then they play a little bit of it. I'm like, oh, this sounds different. Like, not like very stereotypical. And then I also was like, he seems interesting. So then I pulled up my streaming service and I started playing songs. And I'm like, oh, this is good. I need to get this for Aaron. I like this. Felt like his production was different and his delivery was a little different. And then, of course, I look and I'm like, oh, his vinyl's not even out yet.
Right.
So then I'm like, well, great. I got to sit on this.
This was actually also nominated for Best Rap Album.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just was purely like, I like this.
I'll send you the video of his winning performance from Rhythm and Flow. And I was watching it with Melissa at the time. And when he did his audition, I told her he's going to win this thing. And he ended up winning it. Yeah. So I think he was a teacher or he worked in the Chicago school system and would rap for his students and then kind of got pushed into that. And now he's where he is.
So I will tell you this, when I listened to it on my way over here, and my stereo in my car is a factory stereo, but my car, it's a Kia Soul. Those, if you don't know them, are typically made for people who like music. And I have an upgraded stereo in there that came from the factory, and it's even got like a subwoofer and stuff under one of the seats, and it just came like that. So when I put this on, and I do not have the bass cranked in my car, I have it about halfway. This album, my leg was vibrating the entire time.
I was going to say, I could see it knocking you back a bit. I don't know this album, but just the way that he does things, I can see you needing it to dial it back a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Like if I had to turn it down, like the radio down, because the vibration was getting to me a little bit. So awesome. So if you like bass, you're going to like this, because there's times where I turn on like the Black Keys and my rearview mirror's vibrating.
It's the only way to listen to that.
Right. So
no, I'm excited for that. I did not expect that one when you said it was going to be a rap album.
Well, I know that that's your favorite genre of music. Mm-hmm. So if I'm coming in to bring you a rap album, I don't want to do a half-ass.
Right. And he's kind of a guy who is a little more old school, where he's more focused on lyrics and and all that kind of stuff too. So
right, I appreciated his presentation. That's what got me.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, so moving on. So Aaron, you got me a band that I knew nothing about.
And I knew very little about.
Zero. And I want to preface this to you. There's very little about them online.
Yeah.
So like me, who is somebody who likes to learn about the artist when I do this, this was hard for me.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the band's Magnolia Park, and the album you got me was Halloween Mixtape, which I know the pressing just came out, but it sounds like the album was released in 2021.
Yep. And
they have released an EP since then.
Mm-hmm.
And I read about the EP they released since then, and I guess it's heavily anime, like focused, which is really kind of tells you about the color of this band's personality.
Right, for sure.
All right. So Magnolia Park is a 6-piece punk alternative band formed in Orlando, Florida. On their official Epitaph Records bio page, they are said to be rooted in pop punk sensibilities, blending elements of hip hop, emo, and alternative pop. And I get that. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I appreciated when researching the group is their dedication to the pop punk in color movement. This is a movement focused on bringing diversity to not only like rap music, but alternative music both on and off the stage. This is an ethnically diverse band too. Like it's not like an all white guy band, not all black guy band.
And they are who they are, and they're not going to shy away from that.
I looked at photos of them, and I liked how they dressed. Like more recently, I like some of their older stuff when they were getting started out. It was one thing, but they're wearing nice jackets and stuff like that. So I like that. So what I'm able to find about this band is this is their first full album release for Epitaph. The band appears to still have their Bandcamp account active, and they got a bunch of random singles and songs on there. I didn't go into those, so I don't know which one of those are on this album or if any of them are just not released on an album yet. But I want to take a minute and also talk about the quality of this pressing that you got me. So it is officially listed as purple. Aaron got an early color variant, limited to only 500 copies, and it looks great.
It does.
I would describe it more as like a purple marble.
That was, and I think I even said that to you when I first played it too. Like, this is not just straight purple.
Yeah. Likely one of the earlier parts of the pressing, the quality is great. So for you who maybe aren't big collectors yet at this point, the earlier in the pressing or smaller batches that you get, the quality is generally considered to be better because the pressing plates degrade after time. And then you get stuff where you get blemishes, dings, there's dirt on the pressings. So that's why people usually prefer older pressings and smaller pressings. And you're usually going to pay more for a small batch pressing, which we did not apparently for this one.
Not in this one.
No. So also too, for a newish band, their gatefold, it was very high stock quality.
I would agree. It
was really nice. And then also the record was perfectly flat, and which I thought was really interesting because you said you didn't realize that it came right away. So it sat out like 90-degree heat.
Yeah, this was delivered on one of those days that was like 90, 95 degrees. And then I go outside a couple hours after the mail had come. I'm like, shoot. These records have been sitting out this
right, which I'm nervous since I got one record coming today and it's raining out. So hopefully the delivery driver doesn't put it in water.
Yep.
All right. So also there were no dings, dents. It was just a good quality press.
It was also packaged very well when they shipped it too.
Right. So over the last few years, if you don't know, they weren't really expecting records to become a big thing when COVID hit. So for years, all of these plants have been shut down. And then all of a sudden, record production or record demands go through the roof. And there's all these plants. And like Jack White not that long ago was saying, you guys need to build more plants.
Right.
Like they're running around like 24 hours a day just pumping out these records. And of course, what happens when you rush? You lose quality. Right. So like that Snoop Dogg record that we talked about not that long ago was a Canadian press. There are lines on it, which I'm assuming are for them taking it off the press too soon, and or the plate being dirty or something, which is really disappointing. So I'm hoping eventually NFTs fail horribly and Snoop starts pressing records again. Mm-hmm. So, honestly, when Aaron put this record in my hand, I wasn't really sure what to expect. We always try to get each other stuff that the other person doesn't know much about, but stuff that people really like. Mm-hmm. So we never want to put crap in the other person's hand, right, or just like to shock people. Except for maybe when I bought you that Orville pack, I was trying to shock you a little bit.
That one worked.
Yeah. So from the moment the stylist touched that beautiful, beautiful purple vinyl, I could see why Aaron liked this. So track number 1, The End, kind of a dark concept. It kind of starts out with them talking about a looming darkness and clouds and a last ride with your friends. The thing is, the tone of the music really doesn't match that. It's actually fairly upbeat. It's clear mental health is a focus on the song. They're encouraging you to take a breath and survive. But then they're kind of like talking about like they just don't care anymore and it's going to be the end. Mm-hmm. So kind of a little bit of a mixed message there. And it kind of like says to me it's like when you're young and you feel like everything's super overwhelming and you know, I don't know about you, but I can remember one moment feeling overwhelmed and like the world sucks and then being super happy and then feeling like the world sucks again.
You get stuck in that spiral.
Right. And I think that's what these guys were kind of trying to get. Track number 2, this track's called Liar. This is kind of still continues the genre blending. We're jumping between emo, we got these super moody lyrics, and then fast punk keeps cutting in and cutting out, and the tempo goes up, the tempo goes down, and then these angst-ridden lyrics just kind of keep the party flowing, and they definitely live up to the emo in their name. I will say they're constantly coming across as kind of angry teen angst at this point. Like, I'm noticing a trend in the lyrics. Mm-hmm. So track 4, Tonight, the lyrics are again a bit on the nose. The singer is yelling, "I don't care if we fucking die tonight," calling out life is so unfair. It's kind of reoccurring to me that they're just really focusing on this struggle of life, where most of the lyrical content at this point kind of honestly is feeling a little repetitive. Mm-hmm. Each song kind of has these high-end transitions between these tempos like I was just talking about, but I don't want to make it sound like the music's bad. A lot of bands like this really can't handle these level of frequent changes, and honestly it makes the music feel incredibly layered and feeling very fresh and unique, and a lot of pop punk bands really struggle with being able to pull that off.
I agree.
All right, so track 6. So this is the first track on the B side. This song actually really surprised me a lot. The guitar and chorus kind of reminded me of an 80s song. It was very different than the rest of the album. The singer kind of loses the pop punk emo style in his voice and sings more traditionally with clear vocals. It was quite refreshing, and I'm not saying they need to do this all the time, but I wouldn't mind hearing more of that.
Yeah.
So, track 8, Back on My Bullshit. I'm finding myself wondering if the singer Joshua Roberts gets exhausted after playing a concert. Because with all these like tempo changes and styles in his voice that he has to frequently change, it makes me kind of feel like he's very talented and he could probably handle singing with more like frantic bands like Linkin Park.
I can see that.
Yeah. I'm not saying he needs to go on tour with them. I'm just saying he could probably handle it. He could do it. So in conclusion, this album is great. I can see why they got signed. I appreciate their inclusive approach to alternative music. The pressing looks great, sounds great. The production of the album is better than most. Magnolia Park is creative, diverse, and talented. If I had to find a criticism, it's in their lyrical content. I do appreciate mental health and the need for angst in this type of music, but the content was a little simple and repetitive. I don't want that to feel like in any way I'm insulting Josh. It was excellent delivery. Just maybe someone else in the band needs to help work on writing lyrical content. Would I have bought this for myself? Nope, definitely not. I generally don't do the pop punk indie scene. If I do indie, it's usually like the acoustic single artist. Will I be keeping this album? Absolutely. It's definitely going to make itself into my moderate rotation. And if I see these guys pop up on something, I'm probably going to pay attention just because I generally really, really like them.
So the lead singer he's black, and he gets a lot of backlash for singing, in the style that he does. And
really?
And, they tell him, oh, he should be a rapper. He shouldn't be doing this. He should be doing that. So their latest single is called Don't Be Racist. And
That's awesome.
Dives headfirst into that. And I suggest giving that one a listen because I think, one, it's hilarious. Two, it gives you the fuck you, I'm going to do what I want. We're going to make the music that we want.
Which they absolutely should.
Yeah.
I do think he's talented. Like, he could probably do other things if he wanted to. Yeah. But this is the music that he likes. He should do this music.
Right. And I totally agree that I do think that the lyrics are a bit repetitive. And I'm hoping they branch out a little bit. But I think right now with people my age and a little younger, that like the depressed lyrics and stuff like that are just big because it hits for a lot of them. And I do think they're capitalizing on that a little bit, but
right.
But yeah.
No, it's definitely a good pick, good quality. Makes me really kind of think, Epitaph probably puts out decent quality records.
Yeah, and that was one that I had to order off of the band's website. You couldn't find it anywhere else.
Right, and this version of it is sold out. The black version is available.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did. A lot more. I mean, I don't mean this in a negative way. A lot more than I was expecting.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
for sure.
All right, loading up my Apple Music so I can find what you're going to recommend to me.
In talking this morning, I kind of asked what you thought about like electronic music. And I was thinking of getting AJR for you.
I know nothing about them.
And I kind of strayed away for that from now. And then I was looking and I thought another Mumford & Sons album. I had already gotten you one of those. And then I thought about the Lumineers, and I can't remember if I got you that one or
I have three different Lumineers albums.
So what I settled on was a 70s band that you do not have in your collection.
That's right, because we are friends on Discogs, so Aaron can look at my collection anytime he wants.
So I got you Yes, the Yes album.
Yeah, I don't know Yes, really. Yeah,
so that's what I got.
I do know that people who listen to Yes, like,
they love them.
They love, yes. Band. Yeah, it's a culty band. So you did a good job jumping in and finding a gappy spot that I don't know anything about.
I did play the first part of a few songs on Spotify this morning, and I do think you'll enjoy it.
And I did add an AJR to my listen to list here, so I'm gonna check them out.
Yeah.
So what album was it?
It's called the Yes album.
The Yes album. I'm just gonna scroll here.
It's got like a yellow greenish color.
Do you know what year it came out?
71.
They are. It looks like they're still putting out albums here. They had an album in 2021 even.
Mm-hmm.
And then 1971 looks like they released 2 albums. They released Fragile and the Yes album. Yeah. All right. So Aaron is getting me a physical copy of this as I'm getting Aaron a physical copy. So by the time we record next time, we'll have those in our possession.
Yep.
So, all right. That's all I got. You got anything on deck?
That's all I've got.
So just make sure to check our Facebook page out. Tell your friends.
If you're local, go check out Eroding Winds.
Yep. If you're not local, support your local record stores. Yeah. You're paying for people's kids to get braces and play sports and all kinds of stuff like that. Absolutely. Like I said on our Facebook page, Walmart's CEO does not need another boat.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. Shop local, shop often.
Absolutely.
So, and last and most importantly,
always remember, there's always more vinyl.
There's always more vinyl. Thank you.